Bum 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 ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum bum bum ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum ba-da-dum bum 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 dum dum bum bum ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum bum bum ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum ba-da-dum bum 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 ba-da-dum bum 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 dum bum ba-da-dum bum 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 ba-da-dum. Bum 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 ba-da-dum bum 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 ba-da-dum.
Basically, you got your kick, your snare, and it might be like here, or the snare might be a little off, set to the right. That was the Bruce Whedon's trick. He always had the snare a little bit offset to the right, pan wise, when you're actually doing the stereo imaging, right? So you got this is right and left, and this is center. So you want the kick and the snare in the center. The hi-hats, that's an aesthetic thing. It doesn't really fucking matter. But usually you want to put like the hi-hat here and the hi-hat to the left, or the open hat and the open hat to the right, so they're split. These are interchangeable. It doesn't fucking matter or whatever. It's like um, think of it as if you're watching the drummer, that perspective, or if you're in the drummer perspective, or you just want to just recreate your own fucking perspective. Whatever, okay? Then you got your bass in the center. And you got your vocals, your main vocals, um, in the center as well, okay? Then you got all of these things right here, in the center, vocals, snare, kick, and bass. You don't want to over compress them, but you're gonna have to probably compress them. Okay, that's just the way it is, to make it stand out in the mix. So just a light compression, just to make sure it doesn't go too overboard, because you remember, don't compress things to make it louder. You want to avoid that. You want to compress things so they can level the volume, and then you could kind of bring it up a little bit so they just kind of pop in the mix. Okay. There's a lot of hip hop people that will compress things to make them louder, but you don't have to go so overboard with that, because when you're in the mastering process, they're gonna have really really expensive compressors that sound way better, and they're gonna pump it up. Okay, so just get everything balanced in the mix, and then when in the mastering, they'll pump it up. They'll pump it up. Okay. So, anyways, light compression. Now, uh, basically, I've found that, okay. So then that's that, right? So you don't put any reverb on the kick, snare, and bass. Maybe on the snare a little bit if you want to for effect, but you don't need to do that. In fact, all this shit right here, just light compression. That's it. If you want to go, do your own thing, futuristic style, whatever, then yeah, you could do some stuff, but avoid any effects except for light compression and EQ. You want to EQ very lightly, just to cut the frequencies that are doing a little too much. Okay, for example, here's the bass, or here's the frequency spectrum. So sometimes you want to do a roll off, so you can get the excess 200 hertz and below off, because the human ear, okay, here's 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, and then the older you get and the more loud music you listen to, damage your hearing, so you start to lose some of this. This starts to naturally roll off. whatever. It's kind of important. Okay. And then I've noticed that, okay, so here you get the punch. The punch is around 60 to 100 hertz. Now for higher frequency instruments, there's gonna be certain spots where they just kind of hurt the ear a little bit. It's around like 1K, and I've noticed that what happens also. So you want to dip that sometimes if there's too much. You know, you have to kind of play with it, but that's kind of ballpark, right? And then I've noticed that, well, Bruce Sweden, he's really particular on this. He says 200 hertz is the most important frequency because it will sound good in any mix. That's actually, you may say, well, 200 is pretty low, but in actuality, most instruments are around 200. So, want to, be aware of that. Don't, yeah. But what happens, I've noticed, is that there's usually a buildup around 300 to 400, which is like the, right above that. There's tends to be a lot of buildup with the bass and the vocals and shit like that. So I've noticed in my mixes I'll cut some of that out, so it cleans stuff up, so it's not so fucking muddy. You'd have to experiment with that shit, but that's ballpark, like I said. Okay, so that's that, and then now what you do is, like, let's say you got rhythm guitars or some fucking shit like that, whatever, and you pound those out. Pound those out here, pound those out here, so you got a nice stereo effect. And then this is when you could start doing the reverb. Anything that's like string section, or you want like a pad, like some harmonic stuff, and you reverb that shit out. You reverb that shit out. Oops. Reverb. That's when you want to use the reverb to give it space. So when you have this percussion stuff like right in your face, it's punchy, dun 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 dun, and then your harmony instruments, give them the reverb, put them back. Yeah, okay, so let me erase this shit and get a little bit more deeper in here. Okay, now here's some stuff here. For vocals, it doesn't really matter. You could play with the effects. For vocals, you could do a delay. You're gonna use a little bit of reverb. Depending on the aesthetic, some mixing aesthetics, they want the reverb dry, meaning there's less reverb, so it's a little bit more out. But I like to put it with reverb, so it's kind of like just you want to do enough reverb so it sounds enough far away, so it doesn't like sound like it's too close, but just not so much that you can actually hear the reverb. Okay? It's like makeup, put stuff to accent, but don't put so fucking much that you change the way you look. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So delay, reverb, and then you could experiment with this shit. You could do like a slap delay, so there's like a short kind of echo right after it. You do chorus, and like what chorus does is basically it makes a copy of it and like a little bit of a shift, so it kind of fattens the sound. Yeah, but you do too much, and then it starts to do this comb filtering, which actually takes out some frequencies, and it sounds kind of weird. But anyways, that's an effect, okay? And then, so yeah, delay, reverb. And then what you want to do is, now the aesthetic is, the standard is basically to do overdubs, or you could call them doubles or stacking or whatever you want to do, basically, or ad libs. Basically, you got the main vocal, and then you got stuff that you say to either accent what you're saying, to harmonize or whatever. And what I like to do is I'll take the main vocal track in the center and I'll do a left or right and an offset here. Like around maybe right here. This is what I like to do. So you could do your main vocals and then your accents or overdubs, like here, maybe like 35 or something like that, or maybe even here. So basically, what I like to do is I have the main vocals and I'll have like a stereo effect, so you can do like they hawk it back and forth. So blah 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 blah, accent word, accent word, accent word. So it's like kind of a rhythmic thing. It's kind of cool. And then I'll do like a little center one here. So you could experiment with this. Like you could do your main vocals, then whisper these ad libs, or you could say them and like Puff Daddy them out, like yeah 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 yeah. You know, just do some yeah yeah yes. And then a little off center one here, with more reverb. So you can create an effect where it's kind of like a, you know, you got some dimensionality. So you got your main vocal here, and then there's one like right here with more reverb, and then there's some here. You could either put them either in front, more dry, so they kind of like become percussive, or you could put them in the back with more reverb, and then well, not too far in the back, because then this stands out. You kind of want to give it like a nice little like wings, so don't put too much reverb, but either just a little bit back or more whatever. Remember that the more reverb that you do, the less louder it will become, because it'll sound further away, right? It'll sound farther away. So that's some interesting shit right there. Yeah, man. Okay, that's good. Okay, so like let's say you're doing your song, so I would go through the whole verse or the chorus, and then do your second track here, and second track there, and then second track there, and then that's when I left, right, and then off center, main. So you got 4 different vocal tracks. And that's cool, because then you don't have to do so much, you know, you see a lot of shit on YouTube where like, oh yeah, you know, like you duplicate the vocal track and then you do all that, and then they put like 20 plugins on that. You don't really need to do that shit. If you do what I'm telling you, man, it's going to sound a lot more natural, a lot more cooler. Yeah. Because the more plugins and shit that you do, you want to do it to make effect. You don't want to put plugins and all kinds of shit to make it sound better. Okay, that's the difference between the Bruce Sweden method and this other method where you spot mic everything and then you add a bunch of fucking plugins. Okay, so here's some food for thought. Vocal mic placement. So here's the mic, and here's the pop filter, right? Some food for thought here. So if you're the actual space where you're from the mic, the closer you are to the mic, the more intimate the sound. Like it's right close to your ear, right? The further away, you are from the mic, the more it kind of sounds like kind of natural, but then you have to really sing and really pump it. You know, it's like you don't want to sing like fucking classical and close mic it, or you don't want to sing like super soul and close mic. You have to like compensate for that shit. Now here's where you could do some interesting things. Is that, let's say you're doing your left, right, center things, you can actually experiment with standing further from the mic, and then that way, instead of adding more reverb, the reverb is already built in because you're further away. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you could add the reverb, but like the quality is kind of there. Obviously, if you're in a vocal booth and it's really dry, then you're kind of fucked anyway. You gotta do what you gotta do. But that's some interesting things. So you can experiment with that. Or let's say you got the main vocal right here, and then maybe they're like kind of neutral distance away, and you could even go closer, and you could whisper the ad libs. So then you got these cool effects, and that's what gives it a dimensionality in the vocal. So you don't have to do, like I said, 2,000 fucking plugins to make it sound good. Because it's like, dude, if you already got 4 tracks and you fuck with the distance, it's gonna sound cool, man. What you don't want to do is do the main thing here, you know, all the same quality with your overdubs, you know, because then it just kind of sounds like everything's kind of smushed. If you do that, then you gotta add some more reverb or do some kind of effect or something where it kind of differentiates those vocal qualities. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you got a singer, what they like to do too is they like to harmonize. So you'll have one voice here, and then they might do like an octave below or an octave higher, or they might do like maybe a third here, and harmonize with themselves. So that's something that they like to do. Yeah. If you're recording a group of people, for example, like backup singers, what you want to do is do this. Have the backup singers like this, and then you have one mic that they sing into here. Okay, so just one mic, and then that way all of the spatial shit's already built into the way it's mic'd, so you don't have to do the pans or whatever the fuck it is that you need to do. And you want to make sure also that the backup singers are used to singing together, because if they're not used to singing together, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be a train wreck. You gotta make sure that they're used to singing together. You hire them as a group. That way, when they go in the studio, they knock it out. Sounds great. All right. What else we got here? So again, like I'm doing a lot of mic placement stuff and shit, and you're like, well, that's not how you mix, blah blah blah. Well, like I said, all that mic placement shit will carry on in the mix and save you time later in the mix. Because mixing shouldn't be that fucking hard, okay? What makes mixing hard is your listening environment sucks. Or you're in the box. Either and or. Why your mix sucks. Mix sucks, okay? So, or headphones. Now, these are the factors that make your mixing difficult or makes it sucky. So your listening environment. Unfortunately, like if you're an independent artist, like for me, I'm renting a room and I have my shit in the room, and it's not the best listening environment. In the box, I'm mixing on the computer, so I don't have access to those really expensive mixing boards at the recording studio where they make everything really sound good. Headphones. Sometimes it's late at night and you come back from work and shit or whatever, and you gotta put the headphones on. So all these things affect the time it takes for you to mix and make it sound sucky because you're not getting this recording studio environment where you can make really accurate decisions. What happens is it's like trial and error. Like you fix something on the headphones or your speakers or whatever, and then you take it to the car and you're like, fuck dude, I gotta fix this shit, I gotta tweak that a little bit, little tweaks and little tweaks. So eventually after like 20 revisions, then you kind of get sounding where it needs to sound. So that sucks, but that's unfortunately, if you can outsource your mixing, then go ahead and do it. Yeah, otherwise, if you're independent, you want to do it yourself. You know, it's a valuable skill to develop, but it's by doing it this way with the headphones and the trial and error and trial, you will learn things, but it will take you a really fucking long time to actually learn why this sounds like that or that sounds like that. When you're in just recording studio, you're just like, okay, cool, fuck it, and it sounds great, and then you take it home, you're like, okay, maybe just a couple more adjustments, and it's really fast, sass, you know? Okay, let's see what else we got. Alright, so that's basically mixing in a nutshell. If you have any questions or comments or whatever, let me know. Maybe I can get more deeper into a subject or whatever. Maybe we could, yeah. I mean, basically, you just want the kick, the snare, and the bass to pump, okay? As long as your vocals are, you know, okay, scratch that. I'm gonna edit that. Fuck it. Okay, so how do we want the mix to sound like? What's supposed to sound good, okay? The kick, the snare, and the bass, and the vocals. These need to be perfect. Or else it's just not gonna work. Everything else is not gonna work. So basically, the bass, the kick, and the snare, they need to punch. Okay, not get too crazy. Don't punch too much because the louder the bass is or whatever, you know, a lot of hip hop or pop EDM people, they'll like really punch the bass and the kick, especially. And what happens is that causes ear fatigue. There's a lot of songs that I really like, but I can't listen to them that much because it just hurts my fucking ears. I'm like, I want to turn it up, and it's just like, oh god, it's just really fucking loud in that frequency. And other people might be like, oh, that sounds really fucking good. Well, fuck you, you're an idiot. When you're a professional musician, you gotta take care of your ears, okay? So the vocals, what you want to do is the basic guidelines here is that if it's a ballad or like a really like slow song, the vocals are gonna be louder than the kick, snare, bass. Okay, the ratio. If it's like a pop, rhythmic song or rap song, you want the vocals to be like here's the beat, right? And the vocals gotta be like right here. Not on top of the beat, but like right up, like above it, but still in the mix. Okay? Because you want this shit to punch. If you turn it up and it's like the vocals are like much like on top of the beat, meaning that they're mixed in a way where the kick and bass and snare are not coming through, they're not punching, then that's not gonna work. You want to have them not on top of the beat, but like here's a beat and just right on top of it, so you could still understand what they're saying, but when you turn that shit up, the kick and the snare are punching. So if your head's doing this, that means you're feeling it, and it sounds musical. You know, it's gotta sound musical. It's gotta sound like together. Okay, so and then any other instruments, if it's like I said, if you want that shit to really you want to use the panning, so other instruments are gonna go here, and then you're gonna use reverb, and that way they don't get in the way of the vocals, okay? Because that's the most important part. So that's yeah, man, that's basically it. Another thing to consider is that when you have your verse of your song, you want to make sure that you don't have all these, it's very like the texture is less going on, less busy. The texture is less busy in the chorus, whatever, you can make it more busy, but on the verse, keep it less busy, okay? Because you don't want to distract from the vocals. Just a good groove with the vocals, and then with some accent sounds or some rhythm guitar type sounds, and it's gonna sound great. That's like a Dr. Dre 2001. The arrangements of the songs are very simple, but they're very effective, and they're mixed extremely well, and they sound great, you know? So that's the trick to that. It's not just, you know, really expensive shit. That's a lot to do with it, but it's also in the arrangement as well. Plays a very important factor in the resulting mix. That's why, you know, like I said, starts with the song, then the lead sheet, then the arrangement, then the production, the mixing, and all of that shit is involved, is integrated. Okay, so I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Yeah, man. Check out other videos for more tips and stuff, okay? Thanks.